Hello everyone, today I wanted to speak about rent to rent and is it still worth doing in 2024? Firstly, what is rent to rent? Rent to rent is basically when you rent a property off a landlord and then you sublease it to make a profit. So you could sublease it by using short-let accommodation and put it on Airbnb and Booking.com, or you might give it to a social housing provider. The reason that I wanted to speak about this today was because I run a short-let management company and I also have 2 Airbnbs of my own. And over the past 5 years, the change in the market has been quite considerable. And the main reason for that is because the country is saturated with short-let rentals. When I say saturated, I mean much more saturated than it was 5 years ago. Does short-term rental still work? Absolutely. And I always recommend using short-term rental over a normal AST contract. And, well, the reasons for that are several. I won't go into them in this video right now. However, the question is, does rent-to-rent work in 2024? And the answer in most cases is no, and let me explain why. When you take on a rent-to-rent from a landlord, it's 95% of the time an empty property, and also it probably needs a little bit of an uplift to bring it up to Airbnb standard. Now to do this, to make it into an Airbnb, you're going to have to buy furniture, and you're going to have to give it a little bit of a cosmetic lift. This is going to set you back at least £2,000. And then on top of that, you're going to have to pay the landlord his rent, and then you're going to have to pay the council tax and the bills, electric, heating, all of that kind of stuff. And guess what guests do when they're not paying for heating? Put it on and leave the window open. Hey! So the point is, your bills could potentially be quite high. However, if you are going to do rent to rent, you should be very picky about the houses that you choose to do it with, and you should definitely do your research before committing to any kind of monthly contract with the landlord. 5 years ago, you could have picked nearly any location in the UK, 80% of houses, and you would have made a good profit on a rent-to-rent model. This was because the stock on Airbnb and Booking.com was so low. Like, there was hardly any houses on there, and people were using Airbnb and Booking.com, but now the levels are kind of even. There's a little bit more people using Airbnb and Booking.com to travel, but the amount of houses that there are on Airbnb and Booking.com now is so much higher. So where would I pick to do rent to rent? Well, I'm from the northwest of England, so for me, the only properties that would take my fancy are 3 or 4 bedroom houses in and around the outskirts of Manchester, because they're really good for contractors. So I consider this. I consider something in the Lake District. I consider something in Harrogate, because their occupancy rates are so high. If I could get a property at the right price, I might consider rent to rent. It's important that you do your research. If you're going to take on a house, you need to do as much research as possible to minimise the risk that you're going to be taking. So AirDNA is a great one. If you go on AirDNA and you put in an address, it will actually give you the figures that it thinks that you're going to make as a short-let property host. Now, it's not 100% accurate because it takes data from houses in and around the area from previous times. So does that give you 100% accurate data of what you're going to get the year after? No, but it gives you an idea. Another thing that I should mention to mitigate risk if you're going to do a rent-to-rent is that you have the right contracts in place. And in your contract, there should be a break clause. You can say to the landlord within the first 3 months, sorry, this is not working for me, and you can pull out of the deal. Now, you're going to lose some money because you're going to have to pay for furniture and cosmetic lift and etc, etc. So is rent to rent a gamble? Yes. Is buying a house a gamble? It is. Is buying a house and putting it on Airbnb yourself a gamble? Yeah. I mean, everything is a gamble in property. However, rent to rent is one of the highest risk strategies that you can use in property. So even though I wouldn't do it, I do know people that have got a rent-to-rent business and they've got 15, 20 properties, and on average they're making £1,000 a month from each property. So it can be done. Now, I feel as though I've been negative about service accommodation as a whole in this video, and it's just completely false if you think that I'm against service accommodation. We have a management company for service accommodation. All my property is either service accommodation or is being changed to service accommodation. And the way I explain it to my clients is that with serviced accommodation right now, we're probably going to get a little bit more revenue coming in, but we're going to bypass all of the silly rules that an AST contract brings with it. If you sign a normal AST contract right now in 2024, then if a tenant decides not to pay, you can't get them out. Not easily. It takes months and it takes a lot of money. You have to go through the courts, etc. If a tenant trashes the house and they've been in there for 2 years, you have to put it down for wear and tear, apparently. Brand new home, refurbished 2 years ago, and they trash the house, and apparently, as a landlord, you have to take it on the chin and say, ah well, it's wear and tear. Absolutely ridiculous. However, with serviced accommodation, if the guest doesn't pay, they're not going in. If they don't leave on time, I can go in and remove them. And if there's any breaks or damages or any wear and tear, then you can put a claim into Airbnb and Booking.com, and Airbnb and Booking.com are absolutely fantastic for this. If you're a respected host and you say, bed has been broken, they'll be like, fine, send them the money. Because they know you're not lying because you've got 100 good reviews. So, in short, is rent to rent worth it in 2024? In my opinion, absolutely not. However, there are people out there that are making it work. So am I saying that you shouldn't do it? No, but you have to make your own mind up. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that anybody out there that's thinking of doing rent to rent, it gives you a little bit of food for thought, and I hope it helps. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.